Call a committee of the whole meeting to order June 23rd, 2020. Can I get adoption of the agenda, motion that the agenda for June 23rd, 2020 committee of the whole meeting be adopted with two sundry items. Number one being the 2019 landfill reclamation, and number two, property tax incentive bylaw non-residential. Councillor Schnard, all in favor? Opposed? That is passed. Can I get a motion that minutes of May 26, 2020, committee of the whole meeting be adopted as presented? Councillor Byer make that. All in favor? Opposed? None? Okay. Moving on. No delegations. Reports from staff right down to infrastructure and planning. Town of Edson, the Community Futures West Yellowhead Shared Economic Development Position.
Thank you. So I think we have Nancy Robbins from Community Future who's going to speak mostly to this. We're excited about the potential partnership here, and so as soon as Nancy's ready, we'll turn it over to her. Oh, there she is.
Hi, everybody. I'm ready. I guess I included everything in your package. Sorry, I didn't expect for you to want me so soon. I was working away here. In the package, you'll find a job description. What we would like to do, as some of you are probably aware, Community Futures has received additional funding this year because of COVID-19 related to recovery and additional operations fund. What we would like to do is hire additional staff in Edson, and we have been working with your CAO to discuss whether or not we would share that position between the town and Community Futures West Yellowhead. It's up for discussion, and I guess I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
So any questions for Nancy? Councillor Schnard.
Hi, Nancy. How's it going? How much will it cost the town of Edson for this position?
I think we are asking for $35,000, and that would be matched by Community Futures.
Anybody else?
Mr. Chair, I think the plan is for that funding to come from the COVID-19 response reserve that we have set up from the cost reductions we did earlier this year in our budget. I'm super excited about this. I think it's an excellent opportunity to partner regionally with a group of individuals that know business, know how to make sure that it's successful, and will help businesses in Edson really be successful for the long term. I think it's great that we can do this as a shared position, which leverages resources, federal monies, and maybe put us in a position for having something long term. We'll have to see how it goes, but for the interim, for what's going on with COVID, I think this will be critical to ensure that we're put back on a stable footing coming out of COVID.
Councillor Wilkinson.
Through the chair to Nancy, I would just like to thank you very much for considering Edson to be a partner in this. I do think COVID is going to affect our whole region, and we're all going to have to work on this regionally, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor
I'll
Schnard.
just go again. Oh, Councillor Byer.
Councillor Byer.
Through the chair to Nancy. I also am supportive of a regional cooperation. I did have a concern. So right now our administrative staff until the end of the year is working on a 0.9 schedule. So they're not in the office on one of the 2 Fridays a month. Does that impact this person's position and any oversight that they would require?
Well, this would be a Community Futures employee, and it would be like the human resources end of things would be managed by Community Futures. And so it would be something that we would work out with the potential candidate, those kinds of details.
Yeah, if I may, I would add to that as well. Certainly with working on the town office, we would have no problem with the person coming into the office and working behind the scenes on those days. I'm sure we can accommodate it working with Community Futures to make the necessary adjustments.
Councillor Schnard.
My question was answered. Where's the person going to be set up? Town office.
Councillor Curry.
Thank you.
Just through chair, I'm also in full support of this. I think it's really exciting. And I think it provides us with a really fantastic opportunity to have an employee that is also being mentored under Community Futures, where this is their full-time job. So it's a really different thing where if we had done this solo, that's where they're really trying to create that position and what they're doing without that mentorship. So I think this just adds that bonus of having mentorship from Community Futures. And so really excited for that. So thank you.
Councillor Sorensen.
Through the chair to Nancy. I'm sorry if it's in here, I can't find it. Is there an estimate of the salary range that this position would be at?
Well, that is really up for discussion with the participant, and it's only a position until March 31st. So it would be prorated based on the fact that it would be only I guess now a 9-month position. But we're looking at, if it was annually, probably around 58 to 60,000 a year, I think.
Thank you.
Mike?
Thank you. If there's no other questions as well, so sensing general support for this as an initiative and appreciative of Community Futures doing the kind of legwork on this. I know that Nancy's ready to kind of move this forward. Unfortunately, our next council meeting is not until mid-July. So, but I'm thinking that based on the support here, that we would be okay to allow Nancy to begin the process of advertising and seeking a person for the position, knowing that council will have to confirm formally funding for this in July. Maybe council could just comment on whether or not they're comfortable allowing Nancy to start the process at this point.
Mayor Zahir?
I agree.
Councillor Curry?
100%.
I agree.
Totally agree.
I agree.
I agree as well.
I do agree also, Nancy, and I'd like to say thank you for doing it. I know that Jackie and I sit on the board. You guys do wonderful work there and stuff like that. And this is just another example of how you're helping out not only our community, but other communities too, and that. And it's fantastic to be there. So thank you very much. Is there any
Very
more?
much.
Mayor Zahir?
Sorry, so this is loosely related to your presentation, but I just, with your work with Community Futures, what is the, I guess, the feeling out there in the business community that you're hearing from Edson and in the region with what's going on with COVID? Is there any confidence, or are people still pretty worried about the future? I know it's a loaded question, but really important, I think, for this council to hear from you what your thoughts are.
Sorry, is that directed to me?
Yes.
It's so hard to tell. I feel like I'm looking at the top of everybody's head. So, okay. You know, I have to say that people are really happy to be reopened, but people are very cautious and very nervous. And one of the unique things about the West Shallow Head is that we had a very low number of cases. And as a result, people are a little more freer with physical distancing and probably public health recommendations than would be compared to a city. We need to realize that there is a great influx of people passing through our communities on Highway 16. And while that's good for our businesses, it's just a really important reminder that we need to constantly be aware of the ramifications if we get a second wave and what that means for our business community. So people are apprehensive, they are nervous, they're scared, they're trying to figure out how to deal with a new reality where they have to wear masks in their workplace and ask people to wash their hands and use hand sanitizer and stay away from each other. But we're slowly getting there, and we're slowly starting to see people get back on their feet. But we need to be realistic that this is a long journey ahead of us, and that we need to be working on recovery for a very long time. It's going to take us a long time to get back to the place where we were on the 15th of March before we declared a state of emergency. So we just need to remember that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anybody else? No? Well, again, thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
And I guess,
I look forward to working with you on this. I'm really excited. We've also done this in Grant Cash for the part-time position, and it really helps us spread our wings in the region and to have more people feet on the ground. So I really appreciate the support and the kind words. I'll make sure I pass that on to my team. So thank you.
thank you. Okay, moving on. Number 2, airport equipment purchase. Mitch?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So through the chair, the airport is looking to spend up to $3,000 on some equipment that's up for auction to the Fort McMurray Airport. So some airlines went out of business and they freed up some equipment. Otherwise, equipment that we wouldn't necessarily be able to afford or necessarily want to obtain, but this might prove some opportunity for us to expand our airport slightly with having the air stairs and the ground power unit. It allows for airlines to use our auxiliary power off of a ground power unit, as well as people to exit airplanes from a larger height than we currently have capacity for. Just opens up a little bit of flexibility to our airport, and it's for the cost that we're looking at, 1/3 of what we would normally spend on this equipment or less. So it would be, if we could get a steal on it, it's not guaranteed. We're just looking for the direction to use the money if council so allows.
Any questions? Councillor Schnard?
Where would or through the chair, I like the concept opening up. Where would the funding come from? Where were you thinking?
So we did sell some miscellaneous equipment from the airport that was being unused and had generated the money from that aspect. So some of it was copper wire and storage, things that we had been storing for just far too long, old systems that that were outdated for us that other airports made use for. So just a few $1,000s that we have generated. So we're just looking for the direction to use that money and nothing excessive to that.
Then do it.
Councillor Sorensen?
Through the chair, 3,000 seems extremely low. How did you come up with that number?
We have no guarantee on winning the bids. We just don't want to spend any excess of the miscellaneous revenue that we produced off of what we sold.
Councillor Bayer?
Through the chair to Mitch, thank you for being creative in your methods of funding equipment. I'm appreciative of the creativity and would support this method.
Mayor Sahar?
Through the chair, through to Mitch, likewise on Councillor Sorensen's point, $3,000 doesn't seem like a lot of money for units such as this. If there's an opportunity here to get a steal, I would hate for us to miss out on that opportunity if this is not enough money. So for council's, I guess, consideration, if we do want to give administration some flexibility here, I think there's huge opportunity. We've talked about the importance of our airport a lot. I really appreciate administration trying to find the most cost-effective way here, but if there is an opportunity, I want to make sure we try to capitalize on that as much as possible.
Councillor Schnard?
No,
Okay, we had up with Councillor Curry then.
Thank you. Through the chair. And I don't know, maybe to Mitch or Mike or Sarah behind me, I see you. Which, if we were to give a small amount to bump that up, knowing that it is an auction, where would you recommend that come from? Sorry.
Sarah just saying.
We'd have to look at our reserves, I think, to see where we could find the money.
If I may to add, that may also create the implication, unless we're going to fund it 100% ourselves, of including our county partners in that. And so that's just a consideration as well. We can obviously, if we choose to fund it completely ourselves, that precludes us from doing that. Under the current proposal with the excess revenue we generated, we're we're just assuming that we would move forward with that. So that's another reason why we were trying to keep the impact as minimal as possible.
Councillor Chenard?
Through the chair, Mitch, because I like auctions, is there any other stuff in that auction sale that we think we can make use of? Because auctions right now are all over the place, and I appreciate the fact there's any other items in there that we're saying, hey, it was on our wish list, we can't afford.
Sam has gone through the entire list and he feels there's only a few items that we'd be interested in.
Because I'm also agreeing with the comment, because it's an option, and I mean, that is helping it up to 20,000 if it's almost brand new. If you gotta bump it up, I'd hate to see you lose the bid for 200 bucks. You know, that's what I'm saying, like 3,000 is good, but if there's room to move.
Councillor
Chair, I
Wilkinson?
really appreciate your encouragement in this.
Yes.
To the chair. I really believe in recycling. I think this is just perfect, that we're going to use something instead of needing to be reproduced. Also, do you not think in these times, this opportunity may come up from other airlines as the economy slows? I think there'll be other people with equipment for sale. I mean, I hope we get this, but to continue looking if we don't, please. Okay, thank you.
Through the chair, I completely agree. We'll continue to look on auctions, especially for airports.
Good.
Councillor Sorensen?
One question and then a comment. The question is through the chair to Mitch. Is there any issues with storing a high staircase? Because I don't want to have to create a storage building. And then my comment is I think we should try to find 10 grand total. That would be my recommendation. Councillor Schnarr doesn't go to an auction without 50 grand in his pocket, so
I want that damn fire truck.
I think it's reasonable to capitalize on this opportunity.
Excellent. And as far as storage, we will not be supplying a $50,000 Quonset to store $3,000 stairs.
Just if I may, through Chair Mitch, do we know approximately the date of the auction?
Yeah, it started on the 12th and there was a 30-day auction period.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so once again, this is an item that would have to be kind of generally given guidance and then formally approved. If there's not additional funding other than what's requested here, then we're, I think, comfortable moving ahead administratively. If there was to be additional funding requested or supported, we would just kind of need to know that and then bring that forward again for formal confirmation at the next council meeting.
Councillor Bayer?
Through the chair to administration, I'd be comfortable bumping that up to $5,000 for our share, because I understand this 3,000 is our share and then the other 3,000 would be the county's share, or how does that look with this 50-50?
So right now, because the revenue was generated through the airport, it's just a straight $3,000 that we were considering.
Okay, so.
Go ahead.
Okay, so through the chair to administration, so if we were to bump that up on our end, another 2,000, then what does that look like from the county's perspective? Do we have to have their permission to increase that by 2,000 as well?
I think we would just have to request of the county to participate. They may or may not, and then it would just be whatever money was approved. Then, so that would mean if the county declined, we would then have the $5,000 kind of available to go ahead.
Okay, I think it's a good idea. I know in the past that we could have used it a number of times out there, especially when we had some of the bigger jets coming in and stuff like that. When, you know, a Walmart jet flew in here, other people flew in here, and we sure could have used loading and unloading and stuff like that. So I think we did miss the boat on that part. I believe we touched on it at the previous council about something like that, but that's all we did. We touched on it, and now it seems like there's more and more people want to be here and do this and that. We have a beautiful little airport here, and a lot of people use it, and even though we've got the COVID, they're still flying in some of these places and that. I'd like to see it raised up myself too, and that I don't know, what we want to go to, or like say $5,000, whatever, something like that. But I agree. I hate to miss out on for a couple extra $100 or something like that, where it wouldn't make good use for us for sure. So I don't know what how council was around the table with Mayor Zahar.
So my thought on this is certainly we're kind of in a time crunch here. I'm comfortable with going up to $10,000. I'm not that concerned about Yellowhead County, whether or not they contribute or not contribute. At the end of the day, this is Edson's airport. I would hope that they would come on board. We can have that conversation with them, but I think this would be a missed opportunity. So I'd be comfortable going up to 10,000 and funding it from one of our reserve accounts if we need to. Maybe we won't, maybe we'll get this thing for $1,000, I don't know. But I just don't want to miss out on that opportunity.
Agreed. Councilor Curry, how do you feel?
I want more clarity from Mrs. Bittner about why or where that extra. And again, like we're talking, if by chance the county does agree, we're really talking 3,500 is our portion.
I think I can, if I can share.
Yep.
Yeah, we have a number of operational reserves I think we could consider. I'm very, very, very comfortable that we have access to $10,000 through that process. Where there's an operations reserve, there's an administration operational reserve, and we just have to look at which of those might best fit it. But we have a number of operational reserve accounts that I think could sustain this.
Okay. Then I'm in support.
You want
Where's
to come
what's the
back
bid
to
at
this,
right
Eric?
now, man? It's Strawberry.
I was just gonna say,
It's at
we
100.
will just implement a user fee on the stairs. And so we rebuild, no, seriously, there should be a user fee if they need that service, and we'll replenish that money.
Something we can look at. yeah.
Mitch just said the bid's only at $150 right now.
Yes.
Don't,
Councillor Schmaltz.
also don't tell.
Okay,
the
so
camera.
quietly, we'll allow you 10, set your timer and get ready for that last click. It's only advice I can give you, but I'm willing to go to 10.
I think too, our biggest competition for a piece of equipment like this might be, I believe they're called West Central Water Dogs.
Yes. So watch that bidding number
I was gonna
664.
say, don't tell them where it is.
We see a new tower out there, it's disappearing in the night. Councilor Wilkinson.
Well, I always think, don't appear too anxious, like bid for this, and Sam gave us an amount that he thought would get it, so leave it and go for the next one, because I just think there's gonna be lots of stairs, lots of buggy tracks around.
Councilor Sorensen.
Well, I stay with my 10,000. If the county would like to contribute, that'd be great, but I think we can afford $10,000.
Councilor Byer.
Yeah, I agree, yeah, I'm in the same position.
I also agree in it because this may not come around again. Who knows what's going to happen to maybe other auctions, and there may not be. But right now we got a chance to do it. I think we do it. We said 10, but it's only actually another 7 we got to put in because you already have $3,000. So it's not the full 10 we have to do. So I think you got our blessing. So hopefully we can get it.
Hopefully.
You slam the hammer down, sold.
So I think I can sum up what I heard
Yes.
here is,
Yes.
yep.
Yes.
That was weak sauce.
Storage wars.
Can I bring this up again tonight, because it was kind of fun?
Okay, slam the hammer down, sold.
Okay.
We still expect you to get it for 3. 15 would be better.
15 would be better, right?
You're good thing, it's a good thing this came up before the next item.
Yeah. Okay, moving ahead, sundry item. Number 1, 2019 landfill reclamation.
I'm going to declare a conflict.
Okay. We may call you back. No. Go ahead, Sarah.
Alright, so we are getting back to finishing off the 2019 books that got a little bit put on hold because of COVID. So next month I'm intending to get those presented to council from our auditors. So I thought I'd just bring you up to speed on one item that has come to our attention during this landfill once again. If you remember last year when we had the fire, we had to do some extra money put into that reclamation account to cover the expenses for the fire. What's happened with this year is, well, actually I'll take a step back. With the Public Sector Accounting Board standards, at the end of the year, the liability account has to have the money in it that is sort of equivalent to the percentage that's used based on the cost of the whole reclamation once the landfill is complete. So 50% is used, we should have 50% in that liability account. We had an expansion that was going to go to the southeast that we've been expecting to be building. That was going to give about another 25 years of use, but there's been some changes from Alberta Environment and Parks concerning wetlands. We can no longer do the expansion down into that area. we're now expanding to the north, which is a little bit of a smaller area, and only giving us another 16 years of use for landfill. So with those reduced years of life, the amount that's now been used of the landfill is a higher percentage than what we would have looked at if the other expansion was going to go ahead. So for year end 2019 to be compliant with those PSAB standards, another about 600,000 had to be added into that liability account. So I just want to give council a heads up on that you will see that in the financial statements flowing through to the unrestricted surplus. So you'll see another reduction in that unrestricted surplus, as we did last year when we used that money for the fire portion of the landfill that affected that account. So just wanted to inform you that before you saw that coming to you next month with the financial statements.
Councillor Sorensen.
Through the chair, if the landfill area went from a 25-year landfill down to a 16-year landfill, shouldn't the reclamation costs go down proportionately?
Through to Councillor Sorensen, yes it did, but because of the change, it was still that amount that needed to be put aside for that.
Councillor Wilkinson.
Through the chair, I don't know who would know this, but can our landfill expand to the west at all?
I'll have to pass that on to Mitch.
Unfortunately, we cannot expand to anywhere around the landfill because of the wetland that surrounds the area. We actually now are diked in and have a drainage course around the landfill, and we cannot exceed that space. Hence the vertical expansion that will be going into existing landfill landform.
Okay, so we'll just be able to go to the north for 15 years and then
We'll
that's
have
it.
to revisit the idea.
So just to administration, would we revisit there or would we be looking for a new site or sort of what's our future plans? Because 15 years really isn't very long.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I think that just triggers, that's part of what we do with the next 15 years is you make the plan for what comes next. And it can include a number of options, including ceasing operation of landfill. We can actually just close it and no longer offer that service and or prepare for the cost. It's not necessarily that we can't expand to some of these other areas, but we're talking about a whole new cost structure when you start going into these other areas in terms of not only the pre-work in terms of the studies that are all required to do that, but then when you're talking about the construction that you have to undertake to protect sensitive areas, it just becomes really, really, really expensive. And so Mitch and his team will be actively working on what the future of the landfill is and over the next 60 years, bringing those forward for consideration and it would be long before the closure of the landfill that we would have a formal plan in place for what the next steps would be.
It is just such a pity. Like I've looked out there at the area that we had and I unfortunately assumed that we'd be able to expand there. So I guess the government changing the regulations on us midterm is costing us a lot of money in all cases. Okay.
There's there.
Councilor, actually.
Go ahead, Councillor Breyer.
Through the chair to administration, so this $600,000 wasn't just an accounting switch of numbers within the accounting world, but actually $600,000 money this had to be spent to the liability fund.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Bylaw, yes, it's the unrestricted surplus is part of our accumulated surplus and all our reserves sit. This has been removed from there to a liability account. So yes, it's been removed from the accumulated surplus that we have.
Unfortunately, it's not one of Sarah's nerdy, just move a little bean from this pile to that pile. It's the real deal here.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Good follow up.
Yes, so through the church administration, so what is the total accumulated money that we've spent since the fire started?
I don't have that number. I don't know, Mitch, if you don't, we can certainly compile that and share that with council. But I'd rather do that than guess at it.
There's there.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I think this really speaks to why it's so important that we have the programs in place that we do with recycling and the organics program. And we really need to continue to stress for our public to divert as much as we can from our landfill. with the new reuse center at the recycling depot, really encouraging people to utilize that. We're talking big money to rebuild a landfill. Like this little areas that we've done has costed us huge. And you're talking 16 years. We need a plan in place 6 years before that, because by the time you get all the environmental approvals and appeals, and nobody wants a landfill in their backyard. I don't want it in my backyard. We really need a plan in place within the next 10 years in order to have that in place. So certainly something that I think we as a community, as a public, need to be concerned about, need to understand. This is why we're raising fees and doing the financial things we need to do, so we have those funds available when we do go to build. 16 years, not that far away.
May I add to that, and I'm certainly supportive of the comments the mayor's just made. I think this also adds another reminder to us of the importance of the West Yellowhead Regional Waste Management Authority, and that this is not necessarily just a local problem. We know that this affects Yellowhead County as well as other users, and the best way to solve these big picture problems is for us to collectively put our heads together and our resources together, and we just can't afford not to, quite frankly, be as efficient as possible with all of the public assets that we have in this region to solve the waste management challenges that are going to come. I think this council has, generally indicated that their support for sound environmental stewardship locally to our town, and I think that these changing regulations need to just be acknowledged as the province also pursuing good, sound environmental practices, which are, I think, on the whole positive. The implications can be challenging, and they are, but careful planning and regional cooperation, I think, are the best ways for us to tackle this issue.
Councillor Sorensen.
Through the chair to administration, I want to echo the mayor's comments. We have made some huge strides to diverting a lot of material away from our landfill. I think we could do a better job. And I think we could stretch the 16 back into 25 years if we started making some policy changes right away. Could be some bulk items immediately that we could say we no longer accept and send them to Hinton, to the regional landfill. And the CEO's comment about regional collaboration, I do believe that is the way forward, but I strongly believe that this council is the one that's going to come up with that bright idea. So we need to be the initiator of it, and I believe other communities will get on board, but we have to hold the reins and move forward on that. Thank you.
Councillor Wilkinson.
I just have to add, as a council, buying used equipment for our airport is one step right there. Well, it truly is. Like, why do we just keep buying? So it's good.
I'd like to say the same thing. I echo what you were saying. I think that we have made good steps after being on the landfill authority board up there and that and pushing them to do it. I think we'll be the ones that will be almost spearheading it with their county, and we don't have nothing in town. Maybe it's in the county, but they're still partners with us. So I think, we start on it now instead of later. And I agree with, maybe we can move some of the stuff out to someplace else in that, which may free up some space for us and even go longer. So it'd be great.
Well, if I may, I think pursuit of things, and this is, as Councillor Sorensen suggested, changing our approach to things like mattresses or other items that we know are difficult to deal with in a landfill of the type that we have, and or can be dealt with in a more sustainable way if we just put in a little bit of time and effort to developing the appropriate policies. And in speaking with Mitch and his team, I know that is their mindset. Is a lot of this can be driven by policies, and I really personally reject the rhetoric that we see or hear from many people where they say, if there's fees, people are just going to dump their garbage in the ditches and those types of things. I just don't first of all, believe that generally, and or if there is small incidences of that, that reflects on those individuals as problematic and not necessarily the policy pieces that are designed to not only protect the financial viability of the service and ultimately the municipality, but also I think our general acceptance of participation in environmental stewardship, which is I think critically important.
So one last thing through the chair, I think then as a council, we have to look at regional collaboration and maybe organizing some plant where we are recycling the plastic into something that's usable again, instead of just putting it into a landfill. Get some manufacturing done that we're actually using some of the material so it can be reused.
Mayor Zahir?
Yeah, through the chair, through Councillor Wilkinson's point, I think that's a really good point, and I certainly would ask administration and or environmental services manager if any products that are taking up the airspace that there might be potential to do something with, whether that's things like pallets or that sort of thing that I know are huge. I don't know what's happening with that currently, but look at those potential opportunities and see if there are some maybe public-private partnerships or things that we can do regionally to divert that kind of stuff from our landfill, because I think if we don't do that, we're going to be in a world of hurt here in a decade or two trying to develop a brand new landfill, because nobody's going to want it in their backyard. People are going to be fighting against it. And then when you go to actually build it, it's going to cost you millions upon millions of dollars, which, as we know, we already have $120 million infrastructure deficit in our communities. So we really have to think outside the box and look at the long term.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Can we get Councillor Chenard back here if you guys want to?
It's a good choice.
He's already got it.
Don't let them know what the auction site is.
Yeah.
But guys, never call me back. I'm up to 152
So
against your
we-
skills.
We asked the question, what if the airplane steps show up at Councillor Chenard's place?
I will donate them to, right now, I'm at 152.
We took a vote and it was a squeaker ready to come back.
Okay. No, it was spent into.
Okay, moving on. Number 2, property tax incentive bylaw, non-residential. Go ahead, Sam.
Right, on the May 12th committee meeting, Council instructed administration to bring forward a draft bylaw for a non-residential property tax incentive program. So we have done that. We've prepared the first draft for that. So we seek some particular input for the items that are highlighted in yellow on there, but also for the bylaw as a whole, just to go through. I think we've captured most of the things, or I hope we've captured all the things that we were spoken about. If we go to page 2 or 3, it's sort of where the guts of it start, if you like. So basically, they must conform to our land use bylaw and any other applicable regulations. Must be permanent in nature. This is one area that we can, I'd like some feedback from the committee on. So they're only eligible if the then assessed value is greater than an increase of 25% from originally. But I've noticed some of the others have it only on the improvement. Some of it have it on the entire parcel. Some have it if someone's buying land, after the reading of this bylaw, if they're buying land to do a development on that, land's included in it. Talking with our assessor about how land is assessed, he says he does assess it as bare land. So the land is assessed as if there was nothing on it. So the improvement is the one that actually will sort of raise an assessment for any renovations or improvements that are done on any existing building. So we have sort of had a little discussion on whether we only have it on improvements or whether we include land in general or new land. So it's a few different things to discuss on that one there. Should I go through the rest and then come back, or should we stop and?
I think it's probably better to go through the whole thing.
So cannot be combined with any other tax credit policy that we may have. It will be transferable to new ownership. So if they sell it, new owners get that exemption as well. There will be a application form, which will be attached as a Schedule A. I'm wanting to get feedback on what is going to be in the bylaw before I build that form for you. The tax exemption for 5 years is prorated. What I believe was what was discussed was the first 2 years 100% and then 25% down for each of the remaining 3 years. I believe that was what was discussed at the committee. The other part that I probably should have had in yellow was 4.8. If they decided that when this bylaw is in force, the permits issued after which date? Was it did you want a July 1st? Did you want to backdate it? Some of the ones from this year. There's that issue for when we're actually going to have sort of a starting point for this bylaw. And then the next part is when it will be applied. I've put following the issuance of the development permit, but after speaking with CEO Jericho today, it might be better to have more after the year of completion or something like that rather than the year of the development permit issue. It might take 2 years to build something, right? So that might be something that we would want to change as well.
Councillor Sorensen.
Through the chair to administration, I recommend we do not include land value, land assessment. That'll make it easier to reach the hurdle, I believe. So that's my recommendation.
Councillor Chouinard.
I just wanted clarification. I'm reading through, I can't find it through the chair. Are we doing it on the 25% increase? So let's say if you have a $4 million property and you add $1 million, they get a tax relief on the $1 million they spent, or the total?
So through the chair to Councillor, only on the new assessment.
Okay, so because I like the numbers, and if it's only on the new, and I disagree because on the land, because if you're taking raw land and developing it, so starting at zero, it's 100% improvement. But I believe this would be a good incentive for people wanting to expand, fix up their building, increase value. So the 5 year, the 100, doesn't matter how you split it up, it's like 350% over 5 years. So it is an incentive, it is a program, and I like it. It's anywhere in town, and a 25% increase is a fair assessment. Whether you're spending 10 million or spending 100,000, you know, it's the purpose is there. But did we set a time limit on how long we run this for? Like, you know, we could say it's an incentive for doing, you know, a 5 year program, 3 years, we have a chance to review it, or is it indefinite?
Through the chair, Councillor, I can't recall. I don't believe I was actually at this committee meeting, so I'm going to go to CEO Jericho to see if there was anything that I might have missed.
Yeah, thank you. I think, thank you, Councillor Chouinard, for bringing that point up. I think not only do I think that's wise, but I do think that that was a discussion that was had. That it's important, I think, to have a period of time associated with this. If it's a really wonderful policy that council feels is still of benefit to the community, it can always be extended. My recollection was that there was a conversation of a 3 year period that this would be in force. So I apologize to Sarah as well. I didn't catch that when I reviewed this prior as well. So, but I do think that is a wise thing to add.
Councillor Curry.
Just on, sorry, through the chair, for the 4.3, I agree that I do think it should include land if the land is newly purchased, because I think that is the whole part of the whole parcel versus the other one is the 25% increase. But I think if it is new development, that's a whole part of the parcel.
Councillor Beyer.
Through the chair to administration. So I feel like I'm conflicted over the land portion. Is there a way to divide it up that if the land is new, that it's included in it, and then I kind of am empathetic for Councillor Sorensen's comment that if someone already owns the land and maybe the land value is really high, and they do a really fantastic renovation, but it doesn't quite meet that 25% because the value of land is so high, maybe given location, I don't know, that they wouldn't reach that hurdle. So is there a way to separate that?
Go ahead.
Chair to Councillor Beyer. Yes, there is the. I shouldn't speak too soon. Non-residential assessment is not necessarily just based on the land and the improvement anymore. it sort of encompasses the potential earnings of that particular property, not necessarily the business in it, but the actual property itself. So there may not be a way to differentiate that specifically like that. I'd have to get to talk with Aaron as to whether that's going to be able to be done.
Councillor Wilkinson?
Through the chair. Okay, I'd like to see land included. I'd like to see it starting on completion date, as our CAO had recommended. And then I think we should start it when we pass this at council. So that's my 3 points. Thank you.
Mayor Shahar?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through administration, I think land should be included as well. I think improvement is improvement, and we should be encouraging any type of improvement. I also agree that it should be enforced the day that it's passed. It's going to be unfortunate because I know there's development happening right now in the community, but those are some of the unfortunate things that happen in life. But in the timeline, I think is really important that there's a chance to review this after 3 years. And certainly the council of the day can extend that and review it or modify it, but giving a 3-year window will really, I think, hopefully encourage people to meet that if they do want to take advantage of these tax savings.
Okay, Councillor Sorensen?
Through the chair to Ms. Bittner. Can you, from the way I read 4.9, where it talks about it will be applied to the year following the issuance of the, or let's say the completion. My recommendation would be the tax year or the calendar year following, not starting prorated halfway through a tax year or something like that. So
I can make that clearer.
that would be my recommendation.
I also agree with this. I like the 3 years that we had talked about before and that too. I do think that the land should be included on it. And it's something that we started out to do. And I think we're moving along. It's good for anybody that comes to our community and that. So it's a good start. So thank you.
So I'll just run through it to clarify that I'm building it correctly. So adding the 3-year term onto the bylaw. We will include land, all land. That'll be enforced on the date of issuance. So I may even remove that part, that 4.8, if we're not doing a different date, because generally bylaws will obviously just come in on the date it passed. And then the tax exemption will be applied for the tax year following the completion of the development, unless otherwise agreed. I'll leave that bit in case there's some sort of leeway between developers and council for that. Does that cover?
I think it does. I think everybody's in favor of that.
Okay.
Mayor Shahar?
Yes, through the chair. I think too, once we get this finalized, I'm going to send a copy to AUMA because I know that we're probably going to be one of the first, I think, probably doing this in a small community. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I found 3.
Yeah.
That I've looked at, yeah.
And so they can add that to their database. And as we go through this process, since this is new legislation allowing us to do this sort of thing, we'll find what's working in other communities, what's not, and hopefully help some other municipalities out at the same time if they're looking at doing something similar.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any questions from the media or public? None, Kayla? No? Okay then. Okay, moving on. A motion to go into a closed meeting session. There's a hair. All in favor? That's passed.
Do we have you there, Nancy?
I'm here.
Yep.
Here.
Thanks for hanging with us.
Trevor talked too long.
Go ahead, Nancy.
Okay, I'm here to talk about COVID-19 loan program. This was I'm not sure if this was included in the package, was it, Mike?
Yes, it was.
Okay. This is up for discussion. So this was just from my years of working in Edson, knowing what was needed in terms of what you might be looking for if we were to offer a loan. So the idea behind the loan is that it would promote entrepreneurship and business retention during COVID-19, business recovery, and increasing the potential of businesses to pivot and reimagine their business models for future success. So the idea behind that is that it's not uncommon during crisis that entrepreneurship grows. So we are seeing, for example, a lot of interest in people starting new businesses right now. Maybe COVID has given them some time at home and they've thought about what their entrepreneur dreams have always been and they're putting them into action, and this is some time that they can work on it. Also, too, we have seen a tremendous potential in people that are currently in business being able to launch virtually and do online work with their business model and change the way they operate so that they could still bring in revenue over COVID. And also, this loan would provide funds to storefronts, mostly in the downtown core, to improve access to physical distancing measures and focus on local entrepreneurs in the downtown sector. So really what this is coming from is looking at different ways that people can incorporate physical distancing measuring and incorporate the external part of their business, especially in the summertime, or even look at ways that they can improve their storefront so that they can do, say, curbside pickups, or they can increase the number of people that are able to go into their business. So this loan program would taking funds from the town of Edson. It would be a loan program administered by us because mainly that's what we do. We're experts at giving loans in this kind of context. It would be for Edson businesses only, so those people that are within the town of Edson with a valid business license. And really the focus of this is to, it mainly is to increase retention of businesses in the Edson area, and also to increase cash flow. So the biggest problem that we are seeing in COVID is that there is a lot of problems for businesses to maintain their cash flow. And that's why you're seeing so many businesses applying for loans like the Canada Emergency Business Account, or the loan that Communicators offers, the Regional Relief and Recovery Fund. And the reason that so many people are interested in those kinds of loans is because they need that actual cash. So the more ways that we can put cash into the hands of our businesses, the easier it is for our businesses to retain and stay in our communities, because what we're going to do is help them in the long run get through those hurdles. I will be honest and say that I'm particularly worried about businesses more so in the fall and winter months heading into the upcoming year. I think right now businesses have more potential to manage their cash flow right now because they do have access to dollars. However, as we head into after Labor Day, head into the fall, to the Christmas season and into the winter months, I do have great concerns about our businesses all throughout the region trying to maintain their cash flow, working under physical distancing measures, and then trying to make sure that they cover all their expenses. And so what we are very concerned about is those businesses, even if they survive the fall and winter months, we may head into another summer where we still may have COVID-19 outbreaks, and we still may have to look at different ways that we continue to physically distance and they modify their business models. So the more money that we can get into the cash, into the hands of businesses over the next 18 months, the more likely they are going to survive. So I really would like to have your input on this. We've already discussed this at a board level. The board of Communicators is fully aware of it. And now the next stage is to work with you as council to make sure that we're meeting the needs of what you would like. And then we can go forward, and Communicators in the town of Edson, both administrations can work together to figure out how this loan would look.
Councillor
Sorensen, the way can talk funny.
no.
Okay, through Councillor Chenard, through the chair, Nancy. Nancy, how much money, what kind of pool are we talking about? Like, I do appreciate the fact if the town of Edson is going to invest money into you, I like the idea that Community Future would be handling it, because you people know best how to handle money, but how much money are we talking about?
That is completely, I'm going to throw the ball back to you and say, you tell me how much money you would like to invest in the program.
You're not getting a blank check.
There's your hair.
Thank you for your presentation, Nancy, and just for the public, we moved this from out of camera. We actually didn't discuss this in camera because there's nothing here that could be discussed publicly. So I'm glad we're having this conversation in public as we were talking about tax dollars being used for this program. I think it's critically important that we have something like this in place to supplement some of the other initiatives out there. I guess a question through to Nancy or administration. Do you believe $15,000 is enough, or do you think that maybe $20,000 or $25,000 would be beneficial, or is that just too much money? Because this is a loan, so they do have to pay it back. That was my concern. That $15,000 in today's world doesn't seem like a lot of money.
I could answer that, Mr. Mayor. It really is up to the discretion of council. If you want to increase that amount, I'm completely open to it.
And just
Go ahead,
one follow-up. We do have the COVID recovery fund set aside. We're not going to be certain about how much money is going to be in there. We don't know what tax years are going to be like. And we have, we of course approved the position earlier tonight, but I'd be comfortable starting off with a fund in the neighborhood of 350 to 400,000 that would be available, which would give us, if we had loans of 20,000, give us 20 loans for the interim, and see what the success rate is. If there's any interest, maybe people are not going to be interested. I don't know. And then we can revisit it in the fall once we have a better idea. And then the other thing is this money will be recollected. This money will be coming back to the municipality, and I would certainly hope that we would reinvest that into other initiatives to support the business community. This is what the cost reductions were in our budget. This is why we were doing it. And I think this could have a much longer term financial benefit for our community and for our business community moving forward.
Councilor Barr, your agenda?
Yeah, through the chair to Nancy. Thank you for working with your board to bring this forward. Of course, I took probably 2 years ago now, talking about economic resiliency and time of a disaster, and the opportunities to jump on this with businesses as quickly as possible was crucial to their success rate, was what I learned. And so I think this is the right thing to do. And then through to administration, how much do we have left in the pool, given what we've already kind of spent out of that 1.8, and where's our kind of balance at?
I'll make a comment on that, and Sarah can add to it. I'm not sure we'll be able to give you a very exact specific number there. I believe the ultimate amount we ended up with in the COVID reserve, or projected amount, I should say, was $1.3 million. As the mayor suggested, somewhat dependent on tax collection. I'm fairly comfortable, and Sarah can maybe either add to or take away from my confidence, that half of that $1.3 million is fairly secure, as if you can be fairly certain we'll get it. As far as what we spent on that, I'm not sure much more than the $35,000 we've committed to, or allocated, I should say, the $35,000 that we committed tonight. Sarah?
You're much more optimistic than I am.
Sure. You may have more information than I do.
Well, we won't really know about tax collection until September 30th, when we see sort of the end result. I wouldn't even want to hazard a guess on that. Just basing it on previous year's uncollected taxes, I'm thinking more that we may be down your $800,000 to $1 million in tax revenue. Just based on the year before, it was around 600,000 before COVID. So that's, and again, as I say, that's not even really basing it on anything that's happening at the moment, just a feeling on previous years.
Councilor Edson, yeah.
All right, thank you. A few comments, if I may, through the chair. Thank you again, Nancy. That was excellent, and I'm really happy that we have experienced loan provider that can handle this for the town of Edson. I sort of disagree with the mayor. I think $15,000 is plenty to create a website or rearrange your counter space to accept to change the flow of customers. And so I think 15,000 is a great number. And I would go a little lower than the mayor, maybe $300,000 fund. I do have concerns about the eligible businesses. It says businesses and nonprofits located in West Yellowhead. I'd hope that would be the town of Edson.
Yeah, I can change that. Yeah.
And, as well, I don't really see a benefit in giving preference to downtown businesses. I think all businesses are facing COVID, and
Okay.
the fifth bullet, my personal belief is the fifth bullet should say preferences to businesses that deal with customers on a face-to-face basis. But we can discuss that. And my last question is the third bullet there, your preference will be given to current and past loan clients. Is that can you just expand on why you put that bullet in there?
Just because I wanted to give a shout out to Community Futures, but it's up for discussion and it can come out. I actually, when you were talking, I put a line through it because I thought, you know what, that needs to go. Jackie and Trevor will tell you I'm constantly doing this. So I do think that needs to come out. I will agree with you there. Yeah.
I do have a
Go ahead,
comment, if I may, or if there's no else. Well, I really appreciate, as Councillor Sorensen suggested, the partnership with Community Futures in terms of the the provision of the loans and the expertise and the efficiencies that will provide. And I love this as a first step in the recovery process. I would love to see consideration of a second step. I see this as kind of an immediate or a short-term problem solver. And theoretically, as some of these loans maybe turn over, as the mayor suggested, maybe moving that into a second phase, which would be to encourage business growth or business attraction and that type of thing. And so perhaps we can consider a sister program or a secondary program that focuses on a year from now or in the future, as we've kind of waded through the immediate danger into building more for the future and generating sometimes I use the term new economy in our community. And that's something we can discuss, Nancy, obviously, as part of that process as well. Because the one thing that I take away from this is it feels like very targeted at kind of an immediate response level, which I think is good, just that we will also need a strategy for the other pieces that come after.
I think it is a fair conversation to have about how you will manage this money in the future. I mean, this money will eventually come back to you with interest, and it is really, you're speaking for councils in the future because you're investing money right now that future people are going to be responsible for in managing. So I think having that conversation is very important, and I agree with Mike that it's really important to think about how the money will be recycled and reinvested the second time.
Councillor Curry.
Through the chair, Nancy, can you give us any examples of other communities that have done this and the success rate they've had, or A, with their economic growth, but then also B, with the loan repayment?
We're seeing this now a little bit with Community Futures offices. There is a loan right now with the City of Medicine Hat and the Community Futures Entrecore that is focusing more on occupational health and safety. And part of that loan is to expand the outside of people's businesses to increase physical distancing. I think it's important to realize that as businesses have had to reopen, they have put out a tremendous amount of money. So there's that loss again of cash flow without that revenue coming in. And so the whole idea behind that is to increase as much cash as liquid cash as possible for people to reuse and to have hold of. So there's been many examples in the Community Futures world where dollars have been given to the Community Futures offices and they've been able to allocate on behalf. A lot of them have been in the realm of beautification loans and different specialty loans like that. However, I think we're going to see more and more of this in the province as we move forward, because municipalities like yourselves are realizing that they have revenue and they have access to cash that can help out in the community. And we ourselves are looking at what's available in our loan fund. And really we feel we have a responsibility to our businesses to get as much of that cash out as possible at a lower interest rate to encourage people to get the economy moving and to keep their businesses open. So the most recent example I can give is the relationship between the City of Medicine Hat and Community Futures Entrecore, and I believe that was in the realm of somewhere between $1.5 and $2 million. So,
Thank you.
Councillor Schnarr.
Through the chair, Nancy. Nancy, would these loans be similar to what the federal government's going out? So like you're saying, you know, I like the idea of $10,000 or $15,000. And then we have to get some kind of guarantee, but I believe a lot of it is because I'm reading through it in some of the Encourage Online, so we can fine tune it. The concept works good. And I think if we go with 10 or 15 to help people work through it, so expanding or just keeping up with, you know, with the plexiglass and all their extra expenses. And I agree, we need to wordsmith, like take out like West Yellowhead downtown. We need to make it more all of Edson. So you'd be an Edson business license, you fit, but the concept's good. But my biggest question is what kind of collateral are we gonna ask people for?
We would be treating these just like we have with our regular loans. So take, for example, right now we're responsible for administering the Regional Recovery and Relief Fund, the RRF. And that loan is dollars from the Government of Canada directly through us to the businesses. And we are not asking collateral for those funds. We are just having loan agreements signed. And really it is up to the will of council how you wish to do it. Most of the government programs that are being offered right now through the federal government have very loose security on them. And really that is a discussion that I can have with Mike on how that would look. You know, I think a standard loan agreement and maybe a guaranteed security agreement would be a good idea, and to register clients, you know, liens against them and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, it really is to the will of council with your dollars on how secure you want them to be. You have to understand, given the current economic crisis that we are in, we will, by the nature of mathematics, have some default on this cash, and that is just part of the risk that we're taking. But as I've been told by my counterparts in the Community Futures world, that this is the time if we want to save our business community right now, we need to give risk a bit of a virtual hug and just take a chance and roll the dice and get some cash there.
Councillor Sorensen.
Yeah, I just wanted to, through the chair to administration, or to council, actually, I just wanted to throw my support behind the comments from the mayor and the CAO that I'd like to see this rolled into, after the term of this program ends, have these funds roll over into a growth and diversification loan program for the town of Edson.
Councillor Curry.
Just talking, like echoing that and going off of that, do you think, through the chair, sorry, Nancy, do you think that 3 years is too long for the specificness of this? Like, do you think that, like, when I think about the COVID type stuff, the social distancing, all of that, does that term need to be like this loan program shorter and then that rollout program after sooner? Because I think we in here, you said 3 years.
Yeah.
next phase should start sooner.
You know, and that's a really valid point, because with $15,000, 3 years is a very long time to have to pay it back at a low interest rate. And so, yes, those things can be looked at. To be honest, I picked some dates out of the air and put them in there just to start discussion. But 3 years is a very long time. And what we can do is we can make this a 2-year loan, or with some to be paid back in 2 years. And I don't have the numbers in front of me of what that would look like, excuse me, for a monthly payment. And another thing that you can, if you notice that underneath the goals number 2, it does say that no interest will be charged to the loan for the first 6 months of the loan, at which point the principal and interest payments will be expected from the client. The reason that federal programs are so attractive right now is, like, if you take the RRF, for example, clients are not expected to pay on the principal until December 31st, 2022. So it is very attractive to people to apply for this kind of credit, because they don't have to pay back, and then you add forgivable portions if they put the principal in it. To be honest, I do not advise you to add that to your loan, but I do advise that you include some kind of grace period, just to allow people to use that cash and to get caught up a little bit before they start making payments. And so, yes, the 3 years is quite a long time, and we can lessen that, especially if you decide to go with the $15,000 limit.
Mike?
I think if I may add to this conversation, a suggestion that we differentiate between the length of the program and the length of the loans. I don't really have a problem with the loans being 3 years, as much as if this program only runs for a year. So you have to enter the program in the next year, but the loan itself can run 3 years from there. Just to maybe add some clarity as to when this program would be lapsed, but not necessarily the loans that were initiated as part of the program.
And that is a very valid point. We can offer this for, it would be really nice to have a deadline, and we can just say this loan is only available for 3 to 6 months, and see what happens. It will create a sense of urgency, and that might be the best thing.
There's your hair.
Yeah, I think that we should initially have a time limit. We can always extend it down the road to see where we are at. I would say till the end of this year, and we can revisit that as a part of a budget discussions, just to really highlight the urgency of getting involved in this program if you need to. I think a 3-year loan repay program is fine for me. The question I have through to Nancy, and sorry if you mentioned this, it's been a long day. Would this loan apply to beautification efforts? I know you mentioned that that's one of the programs available in some of the other communities. And would this loan be available to new business startups as well? That may not be existing today, but maybe looking to start up in the future.
I think you're talking about really 2 different things. I think for business startups, we would try to push them into our regular loan program. These are for businesses. I think we need to focus on, if we only are dedicating $300,000 to $400,000 for this loan program, I think it's really important that we identify businesses who were in business prior to the state of emergency being declared. If the goal is business retention, I mean, ideally, we want those businesses to still be open 6 months from now. If they've had a time period where they're closing, then we want businesses that had to close for a while and to open back up. Business startups can apply for funding through the regular banking, mainstream banking, and also through our regular program, and I would push them into that direction. This would be a recovery loan, which would focus on the businesses that are already existing. That is what I would recommend if there's limited dollars. However, once again, it's up to the will of, I would not make it too broad. I mean, even now, I would argue the criteria is very broad, and we may want to tighten it down a little bit if we're going to move from storefronts and to anyone that has to deal with people face to face. Already, we've expanded the number of eligible businesses already. And if we're only able to help 20 to 25, that's a big pool of businesses, and we're only able to help really the first come, first serve who are eligible, and if they pass a credit check. So.
Councilor Beyer?
Thanks. Through the chair to Nancy. So I'm getting a little bit confused here. Maybe Councilor Sorensen touched on it at the beginning. Between goals, number one, saying between August 2020 to March 2024, and then on number 4 goals, that it would be continued over a 3-year time frame. What are the differences in those two sentence structures? I felt like they were both alluding to the time frame of the program, but I wasn't sure what the difference was, and then also
okay. I think what the first one would apply to is, so businesses would have to have all this money repaid by March 31st, 2024. That would be as long as we would go on the amortization schedule and payments and everything. Number 4 would be the project would be continued over a 3-year time frame. And we've already established that you don't want that, so that we would put it on till the program is only available until December 31st or September 30th. The idea behind number 4, Crystal, is that we're able to, if someone pays us back in year 1, then we can take those monies and reissue them in year 2. However, I think it sounds like the will of council is to reissue the money in a recovery mode, get the money back, and then look at a phase 2, probably 3 years from now, that focuses on something different. I would change that one. With an end date, whatever you had in mind, September 30th or December 31st or.
Councilor Curry?
Through the chair, just to administration. My only concern, just trying to figure out timelines and the pool. Are we going to know what money we have left in that pool of our 1.3 before September 30th? Like, I just have some concerns. So we're just talking timelines if this program only goes till the end of December, and trying knowing we want to get these funds out as fast as we can. We're just a little bit of that struggle because we moved our tax deadline to the end of September.
Go ahead.
Through the chair, thank you, Councilor Curry. So I've been thinking a little bit about this as the conversation's been going around. There's a couple of different approaches I think we can take here. Is one, we can obviously we're getting to a point where we would normally have a certain amount of taxes paid by this period in time, and we can do some comparative analysis to see where we stand compared to where we would be in years prior. That may shed a little light on where we think we may go. The other thing is that we can also consider alternative financing or funding of this project, as in to say we're going to identify $300,000, but if only $200,000 is available to us through COVID-19, that there would be an additional funding source from some of our potential reserves. That's just one way we could consider making sure that we can kind of get this program up and running quickly and not have to wait until we know specifically or exactly how much money we have available. We would always obviously have to sit down administratively and spend a few minutes looking at that to, I think, give a specific answer as to what we feel is most appropriate. But I certainly, I think that we can manage if we find a plan that would support, funding this program, the $300,000-ish that would be functional for council to consider.
Perfect. Thank you.
Is there any other questions? Yes, Councilor Beyer?
Through the chair to council, I feel December 31st isn't really a super long time frame. I think extending it a little bit more might be my preferred method, maybe till March 31st or something. I think when you start talking about like website design and maybe some people don't think that that's the direction that they would put their business in, and after time to reflect and as we proceed throughout the year, I think if they were going to go down those roads that, sometimes we all need reflection, in order to make those changes. And, I don't know if December 31st is a long enough time to put on that.
Councillor Junard and Councillor Curry.
I think putting the deadline at the December 31st is good, but then like it's mentioned, we have time to review it. For now, we just need to move forward, hurry up, get it done, because if we waste too much time setting it up, I think we're allocating 300,000 total and move forward, and we can review it. So if we put a deadline, we can extend it.
Councillor Curry.
I would, through chair, echo what Councillor Byer said, and I just think that the March 31st deadline lines up perfectly with the timelines for the economic development position that we're also doing. And so I think having someone who's in that dedicated role would also be someone who might be able to help support any of those businesses. So I think when we just think timelines, knowing that that position is guaranteed till March 31st, I think it just makes some sense to have those two aligned.
Clear as mud.
In terms of the process, I think what we can do is Nancy and I and our administrative team will work together to, based on the feedback we received, have a revamped proposal brought forward at the next council meeting for formal support, as well as we'll be able to add a little bit of the financial information in terms of funding so that we can get this loan program up and running. That also gives Nancy a little time to, as Councillor Curry suggested, find a super duper new member of the team who can support this process. I think that's going to be critical in terms of that boots on the ground, direct support, who can go out and liaise with the businesses and make sure they know and understand the program and can access it. So I think, Nancy, I'm comfortable that we've got enough information that we can go away administratively and build upon the feedback and come back with a pretty solid proposal.
When is that next council meeting?
July 16th.
16th, is that it? Sounds about right.
Yeah, I think it's July 16th.
21st is council meeting.
First, okay.
Well, we can obviously bring it to the committee meeting before if the
Yeah,
council
that's
meeting's
true
not
too.
until after, but.
Mayor's Air.
Just for consideration, I think it's important that we start pre-selling this loosely to get business start thinking about this. As things are reopening, people, I know some businesses are probably on a day-to-day basis reassessing things, rethinking things, and this may actually be something in which they're going to go, oh, now I can actually do this program that I'm thinking about through a loan program without, getting into too many details. We have to flesh that out, but if council's okay with that, I think we should start communicating that there will be a loan program announced here within the next month or so, working with Community Futures West Yellowhead. Stay tuned, and Nancy has her hand up, just as a part of our economic recovery.
Go ahead, Nancy.
As long, Mr. Mayor, I don't get 25 phone calls tomorrow asking me if they can apply for the town of Edson loan.
Stay tuned for further details, but
Your phone number will not be on the.
It'll be less than 15 calls. Can we put there? Is that clear?
I hope this goes well, like the RRF has gone well for Community Futures. A lot of people have taken advantage of it, and I think this is what Edson needs for us. And I know our businesses are always asking for help in some way, shape, or form, and we've always been open to helping them however we can. And this is just another step. But I think that we can do something for them and make them prosper. So it works well.
I think it's important to realize that we all have the best intentions in our hearts, and that we want all our businesses to survive this. And we want to just do everything that we possibly can. And this is a great move. So I really appreciate your support. I think it's amazing.
So Nancy, in fairness, so I should tweet out your cell phone number for Edson, all others call the office?
And I will be charging a new cell phone, a new number to the town of Edson at about 4 o'clock in the morning.
Thanks, Nancy.
Hey, Nancy, have a good one.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Okay, have a motion for adjournment, please.
bring it
Counselor
back.
Byer, all in favor?